Thank you and good morning. I'm going to start with a thank you to the Mid-Maine Chamber for hosting this wonderful event here today. We're always thrilled to have you on our campus. We hope you have a chance to look around a little bit before you leave for the morning. I also want to say thank you to the candidates who are here. We're so glad to have you here, and we're very thankful for your willingness to serve the state that we love. For over 125 years, Thomas College has been producing graduates that go into the community and work hard. They contribute, they lead, and they serve. And we like to think of ourselves as being a bit of a force, with about 80% of our graduates staying and working and making their lives and raising their children in Maine, and over half of those stay right here in central Maine. So we're very much looking forward to working with the winner of this race, and very anxious to hear your plans for the future for our graduates, what you want to do for the economy of Maine, for the businesses and the leadership that helps to lead our great state, and for all the future that you'll offer to them so that they can stay and make a difference. Thank you all so much for being here today. Best wishes.
Good morning and welcome to the Mid-Maine Chamber of Commerce Business Breakfast Series. My name is Kimberly Nadeau-Lindloff, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning. Before we begin our forum, I want to take a moment to thank our 2022 Business Breakfast Series sponsors. They include AT&T, Cross Insurance, New Dimensions Federal Credit Union, Nicholson, Michoud, and Nadeau CPAs, O'Donnell, Lee, McCowan, Attorneys at Law, Sheridan Construction. Our print media sponsor is the Morning Sentinel, and the Mix 107.9 is our radio sponsor. I also want to thank Kennebec Savings Bank, our video sponsor, which is allowing us to live stream this morning, as well as tape and rebroadcast it on local access channel 7 and 11. Is that true, Chad? Is it still 7 and 11? But on our local access cable channel. I'd also like to ask you to turn off your cell phones at this time in consideration of our panelists and our viewing audience. And I want to give an extra special thank you to Huhtamaki. It is our major sponsor for this gubernatorial forum and, had the drawings. I want to welcome our newest chamber members today. They include Goodwin and Associates, LLC, Central Maine ATV Club, Ridge Real Estate Bean Group, Kennebec Equipment Rental, T-Mobile, the retail store, and Desiree Libby, broker, Bean Group. We invite you to attend some of the Chamber's upcoming events. We have a ribbon cutting this week at Raymond James Four Seasons Financial tomorrow, actually, October 12th at 3 p.m. That's going to be in the Hathaway building in Suite 113C. Our next leadership luncheon is also this week. It's on Thursday the 13th at Amici's from 11:30 to 1. Our speaker is Kate McAleer of Bixby Confections. She's going to share her entrepreneurial journey and how she came to be where she's at. We encourage you to register online. And then our October Business Breakfast, our October Business After Hours event is happening Wednesday, October 19th. It's going to be held at John Fortier's new State Farm office on Kennedy Memorial Drive. We hope you can join us at that. You can register for all of our events at our website, midmainechamber.com. I also want to mention that we are about to launch the website for the Festival of Trees. That will be coming, the actual event will happen in mid-November at the Elm. And that website's going to be festivalofTreesMaine.com. Our speakers today are Paula Page and Sam Hunkler, candidates for governor. Governor Janet Mills was invited but respectfully declined as she has a conflict. She's meeting with the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture today. This program will be moderated by me with time responses from each candidate. Each candidate will receive the same question with an opportunity for rebuttal and or clarification. This forum is meant to be educational and not confrontational, so we're hoping to give you some information about where the candidates stand on the issues that affect your cost of doing business. So let's do it. To begin, we're going to give each candidate 2.5 minutes to tell us a little bit about themselves. Sam Hunkler, we learned a bit about you at the first debate with the Portland Press-Herald. And Paul LePage, after 8 years as governor, I think the people of Maine feel like they already know you. I'd like you to please take 2.5 to 3 minutes each to tell us about yourself, maybe enlighten us about something that we don't know that makes you best suited to serve as the governor of the great state of Maine. Sam, why don't you go first?
First of all, I'd like to thank the Mid-Maine Chamber of Commerce for inviting me here. And I also want to thank the press for being here because there's only 2 of us today. I actually might need some press coverage.
Whoops, you need to use the mic.
Is it not on?
I don't know.
Okay, am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. I happened to read an article this week entitled Teens in Crisis, and I was struck by it. 1 in 10 high school students have attempted suicide in America. 1 in 5 have actually considered suicide. Suicide has become the 2nd most common cause of death in teenagers. It takes approximately 4 months for one to see a therapist for an intake interview. And in 2020, 43% of 14 to 20-year-olds felt depressed, anxious, or stressed. Our children are in crisis. I'm standing for governor because I've become so disheartened by the state of our government and our society. The above statistics are just a reflection of the dysfunction in our society. We need change. Our children will not be fixed by more counselors and more pharmaceutical drugs. We need a basic overhaul of our way of doing government and business and education and health care and raising children. We need change from the bottom up, not more influence from the top down. We need stronger communities to raise our children. We need more community programs to support each other and our children. And we have to stop looking for government to fix it all. We, the people, must take responsibility and ownership for our communities. We, the people, must become involved and be the change we want to see. What do I have to lead us in this new direction? I have been in service to others for most of my adult life, starting after college when I went to the Peace Corps in Kenya, East Africa as a teacher. I have dealt with addiction and all types of mental health problems as a family doctor. I've worked with Native Americans in Alaska and New Mexico and Maine. I've been a counselor. I'm a father of 4. I have traveled extensively in the world and have met thousands of people from many lands and cultures and economic classes. And I've come to know that when speaking from the heart, our voices are one. I care about people, and I know the voice of need not being served. My approach may seem naive. And yes, I'm stepping into the arena as a newbie, having never served in public office. And yet, I believe that's what we need, a new, unencumbered voice with a clean, fresh slate, someone willing to go out on a limb and do what is not being done, someone not beholden to special interests. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to put faith in me as one of you, the people of Maine, with a will to make a difference, to make a brighter future for us, especially our children. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Many of you I know, and because we've lived in Waterville for over 30 years. But I'm originally from Lewiston, born with a very large family, dysfunctional, left home at 11, and lived on the streets for a couple of years. And so I bring a totally different perspective to government than most people. I managed to get off the streets, went to high school, college, got a master's degree, went into business, and back in 1998, many of you know I ran for city council here in Waterville and served 2 terms. Then I served 3 terms as your mayor. And I got into government sort of by accident. You might say accident, but deliberately. We had a mayor at the time that was going to sell 14.9 acres of land on the river to a relative for $1, and I didn't like that, so I went in and offered $50,000, and they rejected my offer, and therefore I became the candidate for council. Then I went on to spend 3 terms as your mayor, and then in 2010, I ran for governor for one simple reason, because Maine has been so good to me. The state of Maine gave me a chance, and I got off the streets, and I had a modestly successful life, have a wonderful family, and I thought it was time to give back, and the people of the state of Maine gave me 2 terms as your governor. I'm running again because Maine is in serious, serious trouble. Right now, we have the worst unemployment recovery from the pandemic. The last 2 years, we set records of child deaths. We have set 3 consecutive years of overdoses. We have one of the worst workforce participation in the country. We've gone from 65% to 58.8%. Our food cost is the 3rd highest in the country. Oil cost is among the highest in the nation. Heating oil this winter is going to be shortages, and we could be hitting $6 gasoline. Unbelievable. And the worst thing is our electricity cost has come from 11th in the nation to 4th in the nation in the last 2 years. So we have some work to do, and I'm here to help you do it.
Thank you. So we'll begin the question, we'll begin this one with Sam. Recently, Mid-Maine Chamber of Commerce commissioned an economic impact assessment of the 4 dams on the Kennebec River. The obstacle to the relicensing of the Shawmut Dam, our most immediate concern, is the passage of an additional 3 to 5 salmon over the dam annually. 2 of Maine's paper mills rely on the Kennebec River water levels. If elected, what would you do to protect these jobs and the resulting economic benefits of the dams? Dr. Hopkler?
You know, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking that most people, oh, sorry. Okay. Thinking about this, and I was thinking that, you know, I believe most people in Maine would love to see, hundreds of thousands of salmon come back up this river again. But the problem is I don't know if that's ever going to happen, even if we took the dams out. With our climate change and our waters warming, I'm not sure that's going to happen. At the same time, I'd like to see us be able to maybe possibly have that possibility by being able for the fish to come upriver. The only way that we could actually take out this dam, the Sapi Dam, would be if we could somehow power it in a different way. I mean, the mill needs that water power to power itself. So the only way that we could even think about taking out that dam would be to be able to power it in a different manner. And is that possible? I don't know. But I can't imagine that we're anywhere near close to being to the point where we could take those out. Again, we'd all like to see the salmon come out, but I don't know at what cost that would be, and I don't know if they ever actually will come out or come back to this river. But I think we'd all like to see that. And I think we need to do whatever we can with the dams in place to see if we can make that happen.
Thank you.
Well, number one is that the plant at Sapi is self-sufficient on power. What it needs is water. You take the dam out, the river's going to drop 6 feet. It's going to shrink about several hundred feet, and they'll have to reconfigure the system to bring water in, and that would be somewhere between $60 and $100 million. So that's just not reasonable. The water quality coming out is about the same quality as the Poland Spring water you drink. So it's not the water quality, but this governor and this administration refuses to approve the water quality, and that's why they are working behind our backs right now to shut those dams down. Janet Mills gets elected, Sappy's gone. End of story. And I'm telling you, the 750 jobs are necessary. The additional indirect 1,500 to 2,000 jobs are necessary for Central Maine. They're necessary for Maine. And I will close with this. They tried the same thing under my administration in Woodlands. They tried to shut the Woodland Dam, the mill down, because they wanted to take dams out, and we stopped them. We can stop them, but you have to want to do it. And this administration doesn't. And that's why she's not here.
So we'll have you go first, Mr. LePage, on this next question.
Mr., when did I earn that title?
I was trying to be professional. Seriously. Okay.
I love you.
I will refrain from such formalities in the future. Currently, a transportation propensity study is ongoing to determine the feasibility and cost of extending passenger rail to Bangor. As in the days when Waterville used to have passenger rail, Mid-Maine Chamber strongly supports this extension to aid students to get to and from our 4 area colleges, to bring tourists to the area, to conferences such as the annual Festival on Jewish Life and the Maine International Film Festival, and to take vehicles off our roads for the sake of congestion, maintenance, and climate change. What is your opinion on the proposed extension of passenger rail to Bangor?
So I like the idea of passenger rail, but as your governor, I looked at passenger rail from Montreal down to Old Orchard. We've looked at passenger rail from Portland to Lewiston. We've looked at expanding the passenger rail from Brunswick to Rockland. It never works. The numbers don't work. We can't scale it. We don't have the people. And depending on the people coming in, every assessment and every estimate that I've looked at falls short. So I'm all in, and I'm willing to look at it, but we have to make sure the economics work. And thus far, they haven't worked.
Dr. Hunkler?
Well, I do believe we need more public transportation in Maine. And as far as rail service, I think that the best thing for us to start with is to perhaps have a commuter rail that goes west of Portland, where most of the population is. I think that we have the population there to support a rail service, because if we just build more roads and wider roads out to the west, those roads are also going to be congested, and it just does contribute to the congestion in downtown Portland as well as for parking. So I would support us extending the rail service out in that direction to start with. And then from there on, we have one to Brunswick. It doesn't look like, that's really feasible at this point in terms of it being economically viable, but perhaps with time that will. But we do have to look at further public transportation in Maine. And how we do that is on the table. And I would just be willing to sit down with whomever to discuss that. But we do need more public transportation.
Thank you. We'll start with you on this question. The number one concern of Mid-Maine Chamber member businesses is workforce. Both the fact that we don't have enough and we don't have enough that's skilled. What would your plan be to help resolve this issue, and would it include new Mainers? Dr. Hunkler?
It may include new Mainers to start with. I think that's part of the formula. I think more than anything, we need education, and we need to have, in particular, vocational education. And I think that vocational education should start in grade school or junior high to get kids who they know they're not going to go into college, but they want to be out in the workforce. They want to be a carpenter or a plumber or electrician, and we need to start getting them out in mentor programs very, very early. In terms of people coming from outside, we need to keep our young here, and we need to stop the brain drain that goes on here, which means that we do need to create jobs, and we need to create incentives for people to come here as businesses, and we need to have loans that are not so much matching loans, but loans that can start businesses right away through grants. The other thing that we need to look at is getting part-time workers. And I would suggest that we have an untapped resource in this state, and that is retired people. I would love to see some of the retired people go back to work for 10, 15 hours a week to help our service industry. I know a lot of you don't want to do that, but I also see so many people in my community who sit at home all day long and don't really have anything to do. It'd be really good to have those people be part of our community. We need to build our communities, and that includes with the elderly.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, we have to stop paying people to stay home. Right now, we've gone from 65% down to 58.8%, and these people are staying home. She expanded Medicaid. This government expanded Medicaid by 95,000 people. Out of the 95,000 people, 55,000 are men under the age of 29 that can only work and earn $1,200 a month. That's a serious problem. And anyone that is 100% and above the minimum wage, the poverty level, should be on ACA, not on Maine Care. That's number one. Number two, you got to get rid of the income tax. The biggest drain in Maine is people who have been affluent, who have made a good living, and they leave and go to Florida. What happens 2 years later? Their kids start leaving. They start going down. My chief of staff, there are 4 kids in this family. One, he's here now, the rest are in Florida. My wife's, half her family's in Florida. One of my best friends just moved to Florida. So the issue is we have to keep people in Maine. And most of all, the new citizens, if Biden's going to open the border and send people to Maine, instead of sending them to Martha's Vineyard, I'm going to put them to work.
Did you answer that one yet? Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't put my check mark here. Okay. PFAS is a real issue for many homeowners and farmers in our region, particularly in the town of Fairfield, but being detected more increasingly in our neighboring communities. The state has borne the cost of water filtration systems and the replacement filters, which can cost thousands of dollars annually depending upon frequency of replacement. These funds are not without limits. If elected, what would you do to aid municipalities as well as homeowners and farmers dealing with this issue? We'll start with Paul.
First of all, it's not a local community's problem. The state approved it, the spreading, and the state owns it. We got $14.7 billion from the federal government. Instead of giving $850 checks, she should have taken $1 billion and a half dollars and fixed it now. We need our farmland. We need to clean it up. We need to grow food. We are the 3rd highest food cost in America, and we can get our farms back, and we got to stop doing solar panels and solar farms on our farms. We need food. And so what I would propose is if in January she still has a little bit of that money left, that $14 billion, I will dedicate some of that money for PFAS. It is a state problem. They approve the spreading. They need to clean it up.
Dr. Hunkler?
I believe, first of all, we need to figure out how big of a problem we have. And that means we need to test, and figure out where it is, how much it is, and to that point, we need our own testing labs, because we're going to have to go through thousands and thousands and thousands of soil and water samples to figure out how big of a problem we have. From there, we have to figure out how to get rid of it, and we don't know how to do that yet. But we need to start doing research and development of how we do that. Whether we need to precipitate it out, we have the possibility of, for example, growing hemp on farmland, and because the hemp will take it out of the soil. But then we have to figure out how to get it out of the hemp, because what do you do with the hemp once it comes out? So we have to have a way, we have to have a process of getting it out of our soil, our water, and we just don't know how to do that yet. And I would put as much money as needed into researching that and developing a system where we can get rid of it once we get it out of the soil and out of the water.
Next question, we'll start with you, Dr. Hunkler. Maine healthcare providers are experiencing unprecedented challenges. Nursing homes have empty beds due to staffing shortages. Hospitals are facing substantial financial challenges due in part to the cost of temporary staffing. Wait lists for behavioral health services are historic, and hundreds of children are stuck in emergency departments awaiting access to behavioral health care. As governor, how would you address these challenges in a meaningful way to stabilize our healthcare system?
Well, to begin with, I think I talked a little bit about this in my opening statement, and that is more counselors and more pharmaceutical drugs is not the answer to our healthcare, our mental health care problem. And I do believe that we have to get back to community. We have to get back. It takes a community to raise a child. And our communities have become so split. Everybody now is on their iPhones. We need to create opportunities within our communities to help children. We need playgrounds. We need a way to come together. One thing I'd like to see us do is, have daycare in schools and have the elderly come to lunch in schools to start creating community. We also, probably on day one, and my opponent here probably would agree with this, on day one I would also repeal the COVID vaccine mandate so that we can get all those people who stopped and quit and were forced out of work to get back to work. That's one of the biggest reasons why we have such a health care shortage in this state. I mean, we did before, and we still need to have incentives to bring people here and maybe help with not loan forgiveness, but loan repayment, where they come back to the state and the state helps pay off their loans because they're actually contributing to our society and they're helping Mainers along the way.
First of all, everyone that was fired by the mandate should be rehired immediately, period. We have group homes. We've lost 30 group homes. We've lost 8 nursing homes. Hospitals are absolutely full of people that shouldn't be there. They should be taken care of in the nursing homes and the group homes. And a lot of those people that were in group homes and nursing homes are now at home with their loved ones, and they can't go to work. So that's part of the workforce problem that we're having. So we need to fix our issues. In 2019, I left in January. We were supposed to break ground for a hospital tied to our prison system that would have 100 beds for detoxing, drug addiction, 100 beds for mental illness. There never was built. We built a new cafeteria, a new visiting place at the prison. It's just insane. We have a new garden area, but we do not have the beds. We were going to build a forensic facility in Bangor that would have taken 2 pods, the male and female pods of forensic patients at Riverview, and move them to Bangor so we could open 2 pods in Augusta for people with mental illness. And the other thing, we have a jail, a youth jail that they want to close. Let's convert it to a youth hospital for mental illness of our children, and let's get them back healthy again so they can contribute to society going forward.
Thank you. We'll start this one with you, Paul. The Mid-Maine Chamber member businesses' hiring and expansion efforts have been stymied by their ability to find suitable housing for their potential employees. If elected, what would you do that could be quickly implemented to address the problem of the housing shortage in the state?
One of the quickest ways to do it is take a look. We have 260,000 seats in our public schools with 130,000 students. That tells me we have a whole lot of extra space. I'll give you an example, Waterville, Winslow. Waterville's 1,200 students, built for 1,200 students in the 60s. Winslow, 1,200 students in the 60s. Combined, they have about less than 700. I say one high school for Waterville, Winslow, take the other high school, convert it to affordable housing. Millinocket, East Millinocket, 2 high schools. Back in the 70s, there were Class A high schools. We have 2 high schools. The total graduating class from Skank and Millinocket this past year, less than 50 students. Let's make some affordable housing. We have a lot of buildings could be converted. We can hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Right size our schools and lower the property taxes on schooling. And secondly, let's have some affordable housing.
Dr. Hungler?
Actually, along those same lines, I was actually in Belfast yesterday, and just walking around, I could see all the storefronts, but then I see all these 3-4 story buildings that seem to be above the ground level. They seem to be empty, and so there is room for housing. We just have to figure out how to convert it into housing. And we do have many abandoned big box stores that I believe we could convert into housing for the immediate problem that we have. But going down the road, I think we really need to start looking at greatly increasing the homestead exemption act for primary homes so that people can afford their homes. One of the problems we have in Beals is that over the past 30 years, their real estate taxes have skyrocketed because of their value of their homes have increased. But the majority of people on Beals, they could not afford to buy their own house at this point because it would be too expensive. So when they go to sell it, they now have to sell it. They're going to sell it for somebody from away because nobody in the town can actually afford to buy it. We have to change that. We have to increase the homestead exemption. And quite frankly, I think that seasonal people with seasonal homes, we should greatly increase their taxes because we pay income tax, and all of us pay income tax here. Those people don't pay income tax, so we are actually supporting them by paying our income tax and supporting the government and all the other services through those income taxes.
So we alluded to this a little bit, or you guys did a little bit earlier. Let's talk about the increased cost of energy. And we'll start with you this time, Dr. Hunkler. What can be done on a statewide level to address the rising prices of energy? And I'm not just talking about electricity. I'm talking about transportation costs, the whole gamut.
I don't know how much power a governor has to decrease the cost of energy. That's an industry problem. I mean, the price of oil is the price of oil, and I can't change that. We can't change that. I think just a long term is that we have to stop being reliant on foreign electric, whether that's from gasoline or whether it's from hydro from Canada. We have to continue to expand and develop our own electricity. I would love to see us take this money that's coming in through the feds and be able to funnel that money into communities so communities can have their own alternative energy supplies. And actually, they manage their own supplies. I would love to see us start looking at more tidal power because most of the population is within 20 or 30 minutes of the coast. And so the power would be generated where it's needed. I would love to see us take schools and put solar panels on schools, in their parking lots, and on the rooftops, so that they could generate not only the power for the schools, but also for the community as well. And maybe we have charging stations at the school that are based on those solar panels. So that's not an immediate remedy, but we have to look more long-term because short-term, I don't know what I would have the power to do.
Paul?
What I would do immediately is repeal net metering. Net metering is added 87% of the cost of your electricity in the state of Maine is net metering. When it comes to gas and oil, get a president that will reopen the pipeline here in the United States. He's shutting down leases. ANWR, he's shutting down leases in the Pacific. He shut down the pipeline. We need oil. Anybody in this room thinks that you're going to see a day where we will be completely off oil and gas, you're dreaming. What we need to be doing is minimizing fossil fuels, but we're not going to get off from it. The biggest problem in Maine, I'll tell you, in the summer months, you have solar. Solar is the most expensive power we can have. So what do we do in the summer? We have a power plant in Rumford, a power plant in Vesey that generate power, electricity at 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and we shut them down in the summer so we can have solar at 25 and 30 cents. That is where the problem is. We need to take Seabrook and buy that power, and unfortunately, I agree that Canadian power is cheap power. We could power all of Maine for 40 years for 6 cents, and we're not doing it because some people are lying through their teeth, and they're spending tons of money to keep gas and oil at a high price. Reason we don't have that transmission line is because of Nextera and Calamine, 2 big companies. They're in oil.
So just to follow up on that, Dr. Hunkler, where do you stand on the corridor? The New England Clean Energy Connect corridor?
I actually voted for, with most Mainers, and I voted against that corridor only because it is public land, and it belongs to all of us. And the people voted to not, for the corridor not to go through there. I can't imagine that they can't find a different way around that public land of ours. So I did vote against that corridor.
I voted for the corridor. The corridor is 156 miles long. 32 miles of it is new construction. Out of the 156 miles, 32 miles is new construction. It's on state land, and it's 150 feet wide. We have 18 million acres of forest land. The entire 156 miles is about 1,500 acres. It is insane. It's a lie they're telling you. I'm telling you, we have transmission lines all through the state of Maine. We can get this done. It's affordable. It's needed. And what they're telling you, electricity finds a path of least resistance. It does not read road maps. The power never gets to Massachusetts. It comes from Canada on a DC line to Lewiston, Auburn, goes to an EC line, and it's used in Lewiston, Auburn all the way down, and it'll flow down, but it'll never hit New Hampshire because it'll be used in Maine. And so it's so insane what you've been seeing. And the Tucker Carlson story that you saw was totally, unequivocally false. The towers are 90 feet high. They have 2 wires on it. That's a DC line. The AC towers are the ones that you see coming out of Maine Yankee. They're 200 feet high, and they have a red light on it. But an AC line coming from Canada to Lewiston, Auburn would not have. They're 90 feet high.
Thank you. Staying on this topic, Dr. Hunkler, Governor LePage said that, at least I heard him say, that we have an awful lot of solar and it's not being utilized to its highest capacity. What are your opinions on the solar expansions throughout the state of Maine?
Well, first of all, we need to stop putting solar arrays on farmland. We need that farmland. And what we're going to see over the next decades is that we're going to see a lot more people coming here because of what's happening in Florida and the heat waves. And so we have to realize that. And so we need to stop putting solar arrays in fields. Solar is one option. But again, I think we really need to start looking at tidal power. We have over 3,000 miles of coastline, more than the whole eastern seaboard combined, and we need to start looking at that. That tidal power never stops. The sun doesn't shine at nighttime, and the wind doesn't blow all the time. But that water is constantly moving all day long, 24 hours a day. So I think we really need to look into more tidal power versus solar power. But the big push is through for solar power because a lot of places don't even think about tidal power because they don't have that option. We do, and I think we need to really look into that.
Do you want to address the tidal power?
Yeah, tidal power has been around for 150 years, and if you can figure out the alloy, the metals that are needed on the base of the ocean to take the in and out of the tides and the corrosion and the destruction of metal, if you can figure that out, then I would say yes. But they've tried it on West Coast, they've tried it here in the state of Maine, and we had it for a couple of years, and the equipment just doesn't work. I mean, we haven't figured out how to make it work on the bed of the ocean because tides are coming in and out. The bottom of the ocean, the sand is like a sandpaper, and it just doesn't work. So what we need to do is look at the other alternatives. I will tell you, hydro and nuclear are going to be the future of the United States, whether we like it or not. The new modular nuclears are the thing of the future. They are incredibly safe, and we need to start looking at it.
Thank you. This is a question for Governor LePage. Last legislative session, a new law was passed and went into effect this year that freezes property taxes for certain residents over the age of 65. However, this is causing municipalities great uncertainty and shortfalls in expected income revenue. What is your position on this new law?
The new law, I understand where they're going, and I think rather than go to the property tax, I'd have gone to the income tax. What I want to do is make anybody that's on a pension, anybody that's on Social Security, anybody that's retired, pay no income tax. That's a choice. They have no choice in income tax. They do have a choice in property tax. Now, the other, to address the property tax issue in this state, as I've already said, is we need to take the excess schools that we have to find a way to consolidate where we can, and then put those properties into affordable housing. The current governor is goes after me for not selling housing bonds. And this is what it was, $15 million of housing bonds. She said, we have elderly housing. Well, one of those projects right now, each unit it's supposed to be affordable. They built them in Kittery. They're being sold for $500,000. Is that affordable for somebody on fixed income? So what we need to do, I think that the biggest part of your tax bill, property tax bill, is schools. We need to find a way to lower the cost of the administration and bricks and mortar in our schools and put more money in the classroom, and we'll be fine.
Dr. Hunkler?
I would like to see us greatly increase the homestead exemption for all Mainers, all primary homes, and also those homes that are rental properties that are being used as primary homes for Mainers. I think that's a long-term healthy solution for our housing problem. So we're just doing for the elderly. Yes, the elderly have fixed incomes, but the real estate tax is a problem for all of us. I will take an exception with Governor LePage about school consolidation. Schools are, in many rural areas, are the hub of the whole community. And my whole gist is that we have got to start building more community. And when you start taking those schools and consolidating into bigger schools, you lose the hub, you lose the center of a community. And yes, it may cost us more to run those schools, but it is essential that we keep these communities intact. In the schools, we need those schools to do that.
Thank you. This next question is also for you, Dr. Hunkler. Some are claiming that there is an achievement gap of our children due to school over the last few years and the COVID, not being in school or being homeschooled or doing the remote thing. What would you do to address the current achievement gap?
Well, there is an achievement gap. You think about, second graders are just coming to school for the first time, and so they don't even know how to act when they get to school because they haven't been conditioned to be there. What do we do about that? That's something where I would go to the school administrators, to the teachers, to the students, and say, what do you need? This is kind of a new phenomenon. We're just really seeing it this year, and so I would go to, again, the people who are dealing with this problem, and I would ask them, what do you need? What do you need for these students to get caught up again? I think one thing we need to do is, there's been such an emphasis on math and science and taking tests, and we base all of our resources or whatever based on the testing that we do, but some kids don't test very well. And we also need to really push the humanities. We need to really push, I think it's essential for children to develop their left brain as well as their right brain. And so we need to expand how we even look at education. But in terms of what we need to do right now, I would go to the people that know, and I would say, what do you need? And what do you need the government what do you need the state? What do you need from the state to really help these kids get back to where they need to be?
I would say that the United States of America has 50 states. They're laboratories of democracy. We should look at what's working, what's not working. The state of Florida, for instance, back 25, 30 years ago was like in the middle of, it was one of the worst school systems states in the country. Right now it's number 7. Maine's 32nd. Maine used to be number 5. United States used to be number 1 in the world. Now we're 27th in the world and Maine is 32nd. What we need to do is to take a look at what works around the country and take some of the good things that are working, and let's figure out what's not working here. What's not working here is I disagree totally with the idea that small schools are better schools, because there's an optimum level of a school where you have to have curricula and debate among the students. And when you have 16 kids in a school, it's costing you $35,000 per student, and there are multiple grades, you're not having a good education. And we're proving that, and we just need to fix it.
Thank you. So we'll start with you, Governor LePage, on this next question. Inflation, rising costs are impacting all of our businesses as well as our homeowners. They're impacting everyone. Is there anything that the state of Maine could do, or if you become governor, is there anything you could do to affect the rising inflation?
Yeah, the first thing I do is repeal LD 99, which means that the state of Maine will no longer invest in fossil fuel companies. That is the most insane law that's ever been passed. We need fossil fuels. We've proven it. And I would hope that we can get the Congress and the Senate in Washington and put pressure on our president to smarten up and reopen the pipeline and reopen federal leases. We need fossil fuel. We're not ready to go to run a country without fossil fuel, and we're seeing it all over the world. So we need oil. The other thing I would do, I would have taken $250 million out of the $14 billion and given it to oil dealers and say, charge Mainers $2.50 a gallon, and we'll subsidize the rest until we can get the president to smarten up.
For businesses too?
For businesses, for all oil in the state of Maine. Now, the problem with heating oil in the country is only 4% of American homes heat with oil. In Maine, it's 60%. So yes, it would be for everyone. The other thing I would have done is taken $150 million, given $50 million to fishermen, $50 million to livestock growers, and $50 to crop farmers, and say, flood the market so we could drive the price down. If we flood the market, vegetables and meat would be cheaper. And the reason why that's important is 85% of the food that we consume here in Maine comes in on a truck. So then I'd get rid of the diesel tax during the winter months, and I'd also stop tolls on highways on food trucks.
Dr. Hunkley.
I'm not sure how much a governor has in controlling the inflation and the rise in prices. As a governor, I believe that one thing we could do is decrease the taxes on our fuel oil in particular and our fuel. I would actually like to see us actually increase taxes on fuel for non-commercial vehicles during the summertime when we have a lot of residents here, out-of-state residences, and get more tax revenue that way, and then decrease it in the wintertime so that we can decrease the taxes on fuel oil and make it cheaper. The state also does have to step in where it needs to help people heat their homes. We also have, every town has their general fund that they know who needs support in people getting fuel oil to heat their homes. But overall, I'm not sure exactly how much a governor has in treating inflation. One of the things I would really like to see us do here in Maine is increase our farming and farmland so that we can actually get to the point where we can feed ourselves. I think we have the potential to do that. I'd love to see us do that, so which would cut down on transportation costs, for example, and make us more self-sufficient for our foods.
Thank you. One of the lasting impacts of COVID has been the loss of workers in the state, which we talked about earlier. Recent reports have talked about workers taking early retirement, leaving the workforce prematurely. If elected, what would you do to encourage and entice those individuals to return to the workforce? I'll start with you, Dr. Hunkler.
Well, I actually spoke a little bit about this before, and I would love to see some of the retired people come back out into the workforce and work part-time. One of the things that would entice you to do that is if you could get paid $25 an hour to do whatever, to wash dishes. But I would love to see you guys, you retired people, including myself, get back out there and help the state out, help this economy out. Go out and work 10 or 12 hours a week. Do a couple of shifts as washing dishes or washing or waitressing or sitting behind a desk. I don't know how I would entice you other than the fact that we need your help. Maine needs your help. And this is part about us where we start taking responsibility of our state and taking responsibility for our workforce and starting to build community again.
Governor LePage?
What I would do, and I think I mentioned it earlier, we've gone from 2019 from 65% workforce participation down to 58.8%. That happened to a great extent because when I was governor, we had work rules, and this governor took them away. My work rules were very simple. You volunteer your time. If you want public assistance, you volunteer your time 20 hours a week, you work 20 hours a week, or you study to get a new career path. That went away. We do not have any work-related rules now. You can stay home and you will get rent assistance, you will get your utilities paid, your phone paid, and all the food you can eat through EBT and WIC. Look, I'm a firm believer, if you're an able-bodied human being, you have to contribute to society. You have to do your part. And therefore, if you don't go to work and you're able to, you don't eat. I'm sorry, it's tough love, but that's the way it is. You gotta give, everybody's gotta participate. In addition to that, we have a penalty clause in our retirement system, particularly for police officers and first responders. You lose 5% if you retire and go back to work. I would remove that so that our first responders and our police officers and our corrections officers wouldn't be penalized to come out of retirement and try to work.
Thank you. It was an issue before COVID, but definitely exacerbated by COVID, the child care issue in the state of Maine. We're seeing a lot of women that can't re-enter the workforce, or they're making arrangements, funky arrangements individually with employers to be able to be home for child care purposes. If elected governor, what would you do to address the child care crisis?
First of all, I would take the 18 pages of new regulations that have been put on to childcare during the COVID and put a lot of people out of business. I would repeal those and get rid of them. I am not into the mandate business. I just absolutely despise them. So that would be one thing I would do. The other thing I think we need to do is K through 8. We have to have after-school care. Because you're right, there's so many parents that go home and take care of people that were in group homes or in nursing homes and their children, and they have to take care of them so they can't get into the workforce. So I would have after-school care, and this is how we would fund it. We would fund it through the school system. We'd go after parents, mothers and grandmothers who do not want to work in the full-time in the workforce to come and be with their children or grandchildren after school from 2 to 5, and they would get paid. Then I'd also, like we pay coaches stipends, I would give teachers stipends to tutor after 2 o'clock until 5 o'clock to help to curb the gap that we've created ourselves with COVID. Have the kids tutored. And so I think with doing that, we could get a lot of people who want to work that would have the time to go to work and their children would be safe.
Or again, I've spoken a little bit about this already, but for me, a natural place to have daycare is in our schools. I believe that, I don't believe it's healthy to put all fifth graders together, one age group together. I think we need to expand the whole idea of schooling and what that means. And I think we need all ages. I think it'd be great to have daycare in schools and have some of the older kids even participate in that. Maybe they want to be health or daycare workers. And we do have room in our schools to do that. And if we don't have room in the schools, we can actually build something close to the school where that can happen, where you have daycare in schools, and then you bring the elderly back in. So some of you retired people, as myself, you go in and you help in the school, in daycare, and actually in the school and helping out as an aide. We need to build communities. We need to get back to communities. Children need communities. It takes a community to raise a child, and we need to get back to that. We need to find a different cohesiveness because we've become so disconnected from one another. And we need to get cell phones out of schools. But again, I think the biggest change I would make is put daycare in schools, where they and start to build community from that point.
Thank you. So we're running up against this. So this next question, I'm only going to give a minute, so that's going to mess up Joy with her cards. The current administration is, federally, is looking at college loan forgiveness. In a minute or less. Are you for that, against that? What are your opinions on that?
I'm not for college loan forgiveness. I'm for college loan repayment. So you go and we have that for physicians, for example, here in Maine. If you come, and the federal government has this, if you come to an underserved area, your loans will be paid off. So you have loan repayment.
Thank you.
What I would do is very simple. We can borrow money at 1.5% and make 2% loans to all kids going to college. I would tie that once they get out of college, I would tie their repayment of the loan with the employer. If the employer repays the loan and the employee would sign a contract, let's say for 5 or 7 years to work there, the employer pays off the loan, the state gives an income tax break for the loans that are paid off, we close the loop, we keep our kids in Maine, and we get rid of the income tax so we can keep people from going to Florida for 6 months in a day. I don't mind January, February, but 6 months in a day is too long. And the most important thing is making sure that if they decide to leave the state of Maine, their loan goes up to market rates.
Okay. So we're going to end with closing comments. And you have a minute and a half to speak. We'll start with you, Governor LePage.
On November 8th, we have a clear choice. We have a prosecutor, we have a doctor, and we have a job creator. Whether it's the Shawmut Dam, school curriculum, the question is whether or not the current government, Janet Mills, is covering up her record because she lacks the skill to run government, or she's just a terrible, terrible manager of people. When you tell people that I didn't know that we spent $2.8 million to do videos that tell our teachers are telling our kids the doctor made a mistake, that's incredibly incompetent. We're facing challenges in our economy. We are failing our children. We are failing our elderly. and we're failing our small business. Janet's only solution is more money, more money, more money. Remember this, too much money hides a lot of sins. So we need to ask ourselves, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Is your grocery bill cheaper today than it was 4 years ago? Is your heating bill cheaper today than it was 4 years ago? Is your gas prices cheaper today than they were 4 years ago? Maine's economy is going backwards and it's not growing. We need to get somebody there that can grow it. I did it once, I will do it again.
Thank you. Dr. Hunkler?
I said before, the fact that I am sitting here or standing here means that you can too. I'm standing here not because I have fame or money or the backing of a political party. I stand here because I went out on the streets of Maine and I gathered 4,000 signatures by myself to get on the ballot. Why did I do that? Because I want a democracy where the people have more say in government. Those who I have met and had a chance to share their ideas, their voices were heard. And I stand here because I have spent the past year speaking with and listening to the people of Maine as a candidate for governor. And for over 30 years before that, speaking to them as their family doctor, a community member, and a citizen of the state. I will bring your voices to this office. The higher we get in political office, the more we find a government of political parties, by politicians, for special interests. How many of you will be swayed by the millions of dollars that my opponents are spending on this campaign? Wouldn't that money be better spent on our children and their future? Most of us want something different, but we don't really know what that looks like. I'm standing for a different way of governance based on finding common ground, using common sense for common good. In order to heal the divide in our society and find common ground, we need to learn to listen to one another and be open to new ways of governance. I'm standing for a government from the bottom up, not the top down. Many of you have not heard about me before today because I'm standing on a very grassroots word-of-mouth campaign. I've accepted no donations. I am limiting my personal money to $5,000 for the entire campaign. This frees me from being beholden to anyone, any organization, any special interest, any political party, and any lobbyist. My allegiance is to the people of Maine. And I will look at every issue through the lens of what will make the future brighter for our children and our families. We have a choice. I'm asking you for your vote, but more importantly, I'm asking you to stand with me with strength and integrity to form a government of the people, by the people, and for the people of Maine.
Thank you. Please join me in giving a round of applause to our candidates. That concludes our program for today. I want to thank the candidates for being here, Thomas College for hosting us. Have a great day.